Oh hey, look, it's El Goblino. Man, I love this guy. He's gotta be one of my top 10 favorite Doors entities. But what is he doing in the sewers? He doesn't spawn here, at least I don't think so. How did he get here? Maybe if we check his surroundings, we could see what caused this. Here, let me enlarge this image and— Who is that? What is that thing? Hello everyone and welcome to another video. If you recall, a while back I made a video going over my concept for a new Grumble stage of growth, and given how you all seem to like that video, I thought I'd make another one similar to that. This time I'd like to focus on El Goblino, everyone's favorite little ankle biter dude. Now, if you remember, based on this character's dialogue, we know that they actually have a love interest, and given how I don't really see El Goblino having a relationship with anyone who isn't of their species, seeing how all the other entities in the game are bloodthirsty monsters, it's implied that this love interest is another goblin character, which means El Goblino actually has a species rather than just being one of a kind. So, in this video, I've gone through the labor of creating a design for what other members of this species may look like, and I'll be explaining what their possible functionality could be if something like them were ever added to the game. So with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so a big thing I would like to mention is that this entity concept is not based on any major lore thing within the game. It couldn't even be counted as speculation or anything like that, it merely is just a concept for what members of El Goblino species could theoretically look and behave like based on little to no evidence within the game. I also recognize that concepts like this legally cannot be added to the game, so the point of this video is merely to give very basic and rough ideas. So with that being said, this is the design I came up with for what I'm calling a wild goblin, as after all it is meant to take the place of a normal member of El Goblino species. Right off the bat you can already tell something is very different, that being the skin is green rather than El Goblino's signature red skin. You see, unlike the Growl video I made, which was mostly based on the lore of Grumble development, we don't know too much about El Goblino's biology, so instead I took a bunch of creative liberties in order to separate the wild goblin from the character they are based on. So seeing how goblins in many pieces of media are typically associated with the color green, I thought of making the species as a whole green as well, with the outlier of course being El Goblino because he's meant to be differentiated from everyone else. However, green skin isn't the only difference I made, as there are several other visual distinctions. For example, the wild goblin wears bracelets on its feet rather than on its hands, and it has horns whereas El Goblino doesn't. Additionally, it also has a more hunched and larger back. The goal of these changes were to make the entity feel more old, rugged, and undomesticated when compared to El Goblino, as if it were a wild creature rather than a completely friendly one. Now, given how El Goblino seems to prefer the mines over the hotel based on their dialogue, and how the concepts of goblins and hotels don't really seem to mix that well together, I think it's pretty safe to assume that at least given the current locations in the game, El Goblino is probably native to the mines, meaning their species is also probably from there. This would mean if an entity of the same species as El Goblino, like the Wild Goblin, was added, they would probably only spawn in Floor 2. I also think it would be cool if they spawned in packs as well as in just singular units, so that way multiple can be encountered at the same time. Moving on, I did keep the fascination of gold with this character, which I think you could tell given how they are holding gold in all of these images. And the reason I did this is because I think this could be an interesting trait shared throughout the entire species, and better yet, I think it could actually play into their functionality. You see, the idea I had to incorporate gold into the Wild Goblin's mechanics is to make them function similar to piglins in Minecraft. What I mean is, players could offer gold to them in exchange for a random item. Now, obviously from a balancing standpoint, they couldn't function exactly like piglins, but the same idea could still be present. What I was thinking is that upon interacting with one of these goblin characters, you'd be able to have the option to give them any amount of gold, let's say 150, and in exchange they would give you a random item. Obviously, weaker items such as bandages, batteries, and lighters would be more common to obtain than stronger ones such as a crucifix or a pair of shears, but nevertheless you could essentially trade gold with these guys. I also believe that you should be able to trade with this entity only once, or each consecutive trade progressively gets more expensive, as that way the entity doesn't become too overpowered and Jeff's shop still has a use. However, I also don't think they should be completely peaceful, as this is doors we are talking about, the entities are meant to be obstacles. So I think there should be ways to aggravate these wild goblins, so they would slap you around for a little bit and deal damage. The two ways I think of this occurring is either if you pick up any gold in the same room as them, or if you try to quote-unquote scam them by attempting to trade with an insufficient amount of gold in your inventory. I'm not too sure how this could be implemented, but I think a way to anger these entities would definitely be interesting. Anyways, that was essentially the entire concept. To summarize, the Wild Goblins are a theoretical group of entities that are of the same species as El Goblino, and their main purpose would be to trade with a player like a piglin from Minecraft. Again, I would like to reiterate that this is merely just a rough and basic concept. Nothing here is final or should even be considered from a lore perspective. But yeah, that was basically it. So, let me know in the comments what you thought, and thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed!